Is there anything you would have done differently?
We reported a true story.
Our colleague Brian Williams is back in Kuwait City tonight after a close call in the skies over Iraq.
Controversial Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and questions about Kavanaugh's drinking in the past.
Sean Hannity, come on up, Sean Hannity.
Today, Andrew Cuomo is having a moment.
Gobble, gobble. I am Chris Stirewalt.
I'm Eliana Johnson.
Welcome to the Thanksgiving week edition of Ink-Stained Wretches, where we break down what's going wrong and what's going right with the American news media. Eliana Johnson, I want to put you and America on notice that my eldest man-child could be driving around right now. If you see a silver Subaru careening on two wheels through an intersection, you'll say, there he is. There he is.
I hope that doesn't happen to me.
No, it won't, because he drives like a little old lady, and I appreciate that. He's the opposite of what I was. I was a menace to society when I got my driver's license and got a car, but he is not. And of the many things that I am thankful for, I am thankful for that.
I can't wait till we get to your obsession about being ungrateful, because that's more my speed.
Well, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for this podcast. I'm grateful for our listeners. I'm a real beam of sunshine and enthusiasm today because I love Thanksgiving.
I do too, but I like to keep my gratitude private.
You're reserved. You're reserved.
So we're gonna do a normal show, but we'll mix in some Thanksgiving items.
Yeah, we got I'd say a light front page, lightish front page, and then heavy on Thanksgiving and food. It's gonna be great.
Medium, probably, but. First item on our front page. I've said I didn't really understand this piece totally, but I know you have a take. Former Beacon reporter Catherine Miller, now New York Times op-ed writer, had a piece, "The Bizarro Normalcy of the Public Reaction to Trump's Win."
Yeah, this is something I had been trying to put into words. And I think you see it in public opinion polls, you see it in a bunch of things, is that Donald Trump's capacity to shock and dismay is less. I guess I should have expected it, in the sense that we've seen this show before. And it's also true that when we think about the Trump transition of this time 8 years ago versus now, it's a totally different kind of situation. While there are these wild picks, Matt Gaetz is gone, Tulsi Gabbard is there, and we could go down the list. The process by which it's all happening is private. It seems organized. It seems orderly. And it's happening behind closed doors at Mar-a-Lago instead of reporters camped out in the lobby of Trump Tower guessing at what was going on. I think it's also true that what Miller says, which is the first time it happened, it was shock that people couldn't believe that it actually happened because Trump was so heavily discounted in the 2016 election. This time, everybody knew that he might win. It wasn't like, I can't believe this will happen. It was, the race would look like a toss-up, and we knew that it would probably break one way or the other, and it broke his way. And I think we talked last week about and the week before, about a lot of the freaking out and the mind-melting anxieties that many people in the left and in the media have experienced. But I think Miller really nailed it on this, because it's like, yeah, we're not talking about will we normalize Donald Trump? It's not about waiting out Donald Trump. This is American politics, and this is the way it is. And I think there's a lot of good in that. We'll see how he does, but I think there's a lot of good in living in the world as it is, not as people wish it would be.
I guess my thought about this was the normalcy of the public reaction to Trump's win just wasn't bizarro. It was absolutely to be expected, given that he initially was running against Biden and was leading in the polls at times by double digits, and expected to crush Biden. and then was always a highly competitive candidate against Harris. And then he won, and he won the popular vote as well, and has the support of about half the country. So I don't know why wouldn't the public reaction to his win be one of, this guy is now normalized, as opposed to, it was genuinely surprising when he in 2015, 2016 crushed 15 other Republicans in the primary.
I don't think
guess-
her piece does not pay off Bizarro. I don't know whether she wrote that headline or not, but it does not. The piece does not pay off on Bizarro. She pegs, though, the part of this, which is how do people respond to Donald Trump? And she sees the media angle, which is, and she writes, it's hard to remember now, but one of the many things early social media did was sort of apply a sheen of corporate friendliness to the voice of major political figures online. Mr. Trump destroyed that fake voice during the 2016 election. And during his presidency, as social media networks created during the 2000s and 2010s fully matured, politics suddenly operated day to day at a much more intense level, where public stands and displays of authenticity, or the approximation of authenticity, mattered a lot more. Even 2 weeks of watching the world tip its hat to Mr. Trump suggests that we might return, even just temporarily, to that kind of corporate formality. A second Trump presidency, but one where nobody's quite sure what anyone else is really thinking. And I welcome it. I welcome it. Fake authenticity is much worse than just fakery, right? The politesse, and I observe this in the way that the Senate is dealing with Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress, even the ones who will oppose him on key matters, Mitch McConnell, Mike Rounds, we could go down, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, we could go down the list. They're not freaking out and making wild statements. They're keeping their powder dry and waiting. And I welcome it. I for one, welcome the, what did you call it, sheen of corporate friendliness. I'm here for more sheen.
So up next, we have another New York Times article. Election forecasts try to go beyond the polls. Are they helping? And the Times writes, these results raise the question, what is the value of these election forecasts? Proponents say they help synthesize the available information and that more data is better than less. They also argue that the forecasts this year performed well generally, capturing the uncertainty of a close race while holding out for the possibility that Donald Trump could sweep the swing states as he did. But critics say forecasts add more noise than signal and may even be doing harm. Several forecasters I spoke to also argued that forecasts are particularly useful in predicting congressional races and that those predictions can provide a better view of how any one forecaster performed. For instance, a polling analysis site 538 predicted the Senate races would most likely result in a 52-48 seat advantage for the GOP, missing by just one seat. Chris, I presume you have a strong opinion about this.
Well, I include it in part to tip the cap to my Nexstar partners and family members at Decision Desk HQ that won, right? Their forecast was the most predictive of anybody's. And Nate Silver, by the end of the election, was writing at great length to say, I don't know. Here's a forecast. I don't know. I don't know. And we're coin flipping. It's close. And we're coin flipping. And I have my criticisms of forecasts. One of the big ones that I've aired here many times is that it looks like a poll and therefore people treat it like a poll, which is a problem. When you have a close race, well, this person has a 54%. Well, does that mean they're leading in the polls by 8 points? No, it means that they have a 54% probability. And I think as a tool for casual users, it's whatever. But what I didn't get about this story, and DDHQ got it right when it counted, which was calling the presidential race before anybody else. That's where it really counts. I wonder what harm, though, right? Use it, don't use it. Look at it, don't look at it. But I don't know the harm. I don't really understand the threat or the danger that these forecasts do. I prefer polling and poll averages, but I don't know what the harm in these forecasts could be.
I agree. What's the big deal?
Yeah, and I think if I'm reading between the lines correctly, it is that for the losing team, for the team that's behind, these forecasts don't correctly reflect the dangers or something like that. But look, would it be better if we lived in a world without polling? Yeah, sure. I mean, for election polls, sure, I guess. But we will never live in that place. People crave it. There's a demand for it, and people are going to supply it. I use averages of polls instead of trying to make a forecast, because a forecast is only as good as, remember the 13 keys to the presidency guy?
Oh yeah. He was one of the Free Beacons losers of the election.
And it was obviously, it was wrong even before it was wrong, because his metrics are subjective, right? If an administration with no scandal, well, some people think Joe Biden's administration had scandals in it. Some people don't. It's subjective. And everybody would like a foolproof method to predict the outcome of presidential elections. And short of a year like 1984 or 1988, where everything is clear, it breaks wide open, the whole thing is we got to wait and see. And I know that a big part of my vocational life is trying to forecast elections and talk about what's happening. And I love doing it. But when it's close, it's close. So just wait and see. 2 years from now, when I'm telling people, we got to watch these polls, just remind me of what I said.
I will. Don't worry. Okay. So we talked last week about Comcast's decision to spin off MSNBC and several of its other cable news channels, though it is keeping Bravo, we noted. And we said, hard to justify the 8-figure salaries that it's paying a lot of the superstars over there. And lo and behold, here comes the news that from the Ankler, Rachel Maddow, pay cut, brutal lineup, shakeup coming. And the report indicates, and this is by Lachlan Cartwright, who's a very good media reporter, I can report exclusively that the outlet has re-upped marquee talent Rachel Maddow, the network's lead on election night and best-known anchor. 3 years ago, I broke the news of Maddow's $30 million deal to stay at MSNBC. Now, people familiar with the matter tell me she was quietly renewed early this fall, but for a far less amount. Maddow, who I'm told took a $5 million annual pay cut in her new deal to $25 million annually for 5 years, asked about the new entity's name and its investment in news gathering. Bad news for Maddow, a 17% pay cut. The good news, a guaranteed $125 million.
$125 million.
Yeah, that is a pay cut I would happily take.
Holy cannoli. A lot of people at Fox and on the right wing have been dunking on MSNBC's hot garbage ratings and how bad the ratings are. And they have a lower baseline than their Republican competitors at Fox. But I will say the same thing happens to Fox when Republicans lose elections. This is normal. This is what you expect to see.
Oh, I mean, we remember the panic that struck the network when Trump lost in 2020 and they thought Newsmax was going to eat their lunch.
I remember it better than most.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened to Fox after 2012. The same thing. If you have siloed media and your audience is of one flavor, then yeah, it's the analogy I use is last week about the Super Bowl. If your team wins the Super Bowl, you're not going to watch SportsCenter the next day. You don't care to watch your team be humiliated. And what Fox said 4 years ago was, now we'll be the loyal opposition and the viewers will come back. And they did. And they did. And they'll come back to whatever degree that they come back to MSNBC. There are larger problems in cable news, which have to do with the age of audience and how much TV people are watching, younger people are watching generally. But I think this is just the cycle. I think that's just what happens. I am stricken by the thought that somebody is paying Rachel Maddow or anybody $30 or $25 million a year to host an hour of cable news. That's just, it defies all good sense and all judgment.
The one thing I would say is, yes, Fox took a hit in the ratings, but their ratings are starting off from a much higher place.
Right.
So,
MSNBC's
so
problem
when
is the lower
MSNBC
baseline.
and CNN lose ratings, like the ratings get down to like a really pathetic place, whereas Fox has honestly pretty astronomical ratings to start with, and when they take a hit, it's not quite so bad or humiliating. But where MSNBC and CNN are right now, in the primetime hours and in the 25 to 54 demographic, is pretty humiliating.
It's humiliating, but don't panic.
Okay. Speaking of which, Semafor had a piece about Kaitlan Collins' star rising at CNN. And then this morning, the network announced that she would be named White House correspondent in addition to other duties. And the interesting thing that I thought was interesting about this piece, it was that it indicates she may be the last cable news star. She's 32 years old, and she sort of came up traditionally through the reporting ranks. And like the piece indicates, like, we probably won't see anybody else like this.
Yeah.
And I thought that was.
What do you think of the idea of moving her to Washington and putting her at the White House?
Well, I think that's a good idea. That's where her strengths are, honestly. I never really understood the move to New York.
And being a White House correspondent / anchor.
I think it's a good idea.
The bet that there will be that Caroline Levitt, the press secretary, and company are going to produce hot content. It was Jim Acosta at CNN who made his chops sparring with the Trump administration in the first go around. I guess this is a bet that it will be high drama TV.
Chris, you had flagged this interesting Slate piece about an interview with the Vanity Fair writer whose scoop about Cormac McCarthy went viral for, the Slate piece says, for all the wrong reasons. And you loved this.
Did you read the actual piece, the first piece on Cormac McCarthy's Muse? Did you read the first one?
I didn't. I just saw the upshot that he had this relationship with a teenage boy.
No, a girl, a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old girl. So,
Yikes.
Cormac McCarthy, are you a fan of his books?
I've never read them, actually.
So he's a good writer. He was a good writer. No question about it. And everybody saw No Country for Old Men, which was one of the best movie adaptations of a book that you're likely to see. And McCarthy cultivated this very elusive, not quite J.D. Salinger-esque, but that he was reclusive and very little known. So when Vanity Fair hit the street with a piece on Cormac McCarthy's lover, it was a big deal, right? It was, wow. Headline: Cormac McCarthy's secret muse breaks for silence after half a century. I loved him. He was my safety. And you say, wow, this is interesting. I want to read about it. And then you read the first three paragraphs of a well-written piece, but a truly obtuse piece. This could be facile, because the first thing that you understand is that the girl was 16. This is statutory rape, if not pedophilia, right? This is stunning. And the piece goes on and on and on, talking about the author Vincenzo Barney wrote this piece, seemingly oblivious that what he was really writing was a kind of what he really should have been writing was a piece about how Cormac McCarthy was really wrong, bad. This is like more than Me Too. And certainly the claim is that they didn't start having sex until she was 17, which, so they write this story and they publish the story without sensitivity to the matter. And then the world caves in on their heads. So here comes Slate, a piece by Dan Kois, who talks to Vincenzo Barney about what went wrong and who's to blame. And it's an excellent meditation on the question of how, and I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. Vincenzo Barney seems to be a very young man, but he fell in love with the story. He spent all of this time with this woman who is finally breaking her silence after all this time. And he lost the thread. He lost the thread. It's a fascinating read about how things go wrong, right? How it can go wrong. He says, the story seems like it fell from the sky. When did you realize what you had and how did you feel? It did indeed fall from the sky. He said, in 2023, I had been working for months on a review of The Passenger and Stella Maris for Substack. I posted it on April 1st, and on that day, my wildest April Fool's Day wish came true. Augusta discovered me. That's, I guess,
The
her,
woman.
the woman, and entrusted me to tell her story to the world. No joke. We now celebrate April Fool's Day as a private holiday. Okay, here's good indication that you do not have proper journalistic distance from your subject. And it goes on from there.
Okay, so let's just stipulate the reporter is missing a piece, and that's weird. Isn't it weird that an editor didn't say something like, how many other people read this on the way to publication and didn't say anything?
And that there wasn't,
Strange.
that in the at Vanity Fair of all places, that in the shadow of Me Too, no one said, guys, we gotta look at this differently.
Strange.
We got to look at this differently. We need a new take on this story. It has to deal with this more bluntly, and it did not.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Very strange.
Speaking of very strange, Chris, I actually read this before you had sent it, like a week before, because this is the kind of stuff I read. This is our style section, because I suppose this is stylish. The Wall Street Journal feature on the $12,000 surgery to change eye color that, according to the journal, is surging in popularity. It's called keratopigmentation.
Jeez.
And the journal says it could be dangerous, doctors warn, but patients say it's worth the risk. And it starts off telling the story of a guy, Jason Jimenez, had brown eyes when he walked into a New York clinic last month. When he emerged a few hours later, they were light gray. The 39-year-old real estate agent is among a growing number of people who have permanently changed their eye color through cosmetic surgery. Many doctors say the surgery hasn't proven safe and warn it could cause lasting damage. So they basically, it says the doctor used a laser to cut donut-like tunnels into his corneas, and then they filled them with dye.
Ugh.
Yes, it costs $12,000, and the article has pictures of, bottles of dye that they use to do this, and people are showing it off all over TikTok. Yeah.
Would you ever consider that?
I don't think so.
I hope not. I
don't think so.
I hear people get a Brazilian butt lift or whatever, and I think, well, I don't know. You're vain. It's risky, but it's your butt.
Messing with your eyes seems...
Your eyeballs?
Yeah.
Your eyeballs? What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with these people? Your eye color is your connection. It's part of who you are. It's just part of who you are. Like, learn to love who you are. And there's not one eye color that's better than another eye color. It's just your eye color.
Well, I have to say, these people do look pretty good afterwards. It would just make me nervous that something was going to go wrong.
And also your eyes change over the course of your life. My eyes are a different color now, and they even change by mood and by how well you're feeling. Like, this is This is a hard no. This is a hard no. They're the window to the soul, I've heard.
Well, we have 2 facile file items. The first is from NBC News, and they want you to know, I mean, like, what are the chances the Biden administration went and pitched this item? They want you to know Thanksgiving dinner is historically affordable this year.
So
But,
amazing.
okay, you may not know it by looking at sticker prices in the grocery aisles, but Thanksgiving dinner is more affordable than it has been in years. The cost of this year's holiday feast, estimated at $58.08 for a 10-person gathering. What am I doing wrong?
I think your Thanksgiving is probably a little more elaborate than 581 ahead.
581 ahead, dropped 5% since last year, the lowest level since 2021, according to a nationwide survey of grocery prices by the American Farm Bureau Federation, which represents U.S. farmers, but the picture improves further when adjusted for inflation. We just, unappreciative people who don't know how good they have it.
Historically affordable. It's historically affordable. It's so historic that it's the lowest that it's been in 3 years. That's how historic. Just drink it in, America. Drink it in. Amazing. Oh, look at this from Axios. This, why, and I don't want to say it, why, I'm going to say toot walks.
Okay.
I'm going to say toot walks instead of that F word. Why toot walks after meals are good for you, experts say. Where are you on the toot walk?
I'm fine with the walk.
Walk after a meal is nice. I don't know that it has to be crassly branded and tied to flatulence. Like, say less. If you want to toot, and it's good for your digestion, but I don't think you have to make it crass.
But we did get some great reader mail about my expressed preference for Stubbs barbecue sauce.
We did, but we also got Thanksgiving reader mail.
And Thanksgiving reader mail. So we have a letter from Chris Chiodo in Chesterfield, Virginia, who says, Eliana and Chris, thanks for the great show. Looking forward to your Thanksgiving show. I would have to say one of my favorite traditions would fall into the obsession section of your program, and that would be gravy. Oh,
Gravy.
I'm hard disagree with this one.
Oh,
As we all know, bad or no gravy can ruin even the greatest Thanksgiving dinner. I guess it's going to be ruined for everybody at my house.
you're no gravy?
I
There's
don't
no
like
gravy?
gravy.
But you're not making it available to the decent people who like gravy?
We don't eat it.
Oh my gosh.
Therefore, the tradition in my family for generations has been to always make a large quantity of good quality gravy days before to augment the day of gravy or be there in case a gravy emergency were to arise. Even when I attend Thanksgiving dinner at someone else's house, I offer to bring the supplemental gravy. Not only as a sincere offer to help, but primarily as to make sure I don't have to eat Thanksgiving dinner without good gravy. Maybe I've just never had good gravy. I don't know. In fact, I've actually bought some for myself on the DL at times when the host has rebuffed my offer, but I've also brought my own North Carolina vinegar-based barbecue sauce to people's houses when they've invited me for barbecue. Anyway, that's who I am. Keep up the great work. Happy, devoted listener. I get the barbecue sauce.
I believe that Mr. Chiodo is a good American, a good guest. I am also pro gravy. Gravy is important to Thanksgiving, and not just if the turkey's dry, but because it is delicious on mashed potatoes. And how often do I eat brown gravy? I grew up in a place where brown gravy on roast beef sandwiches and French fries was pretty common, turkey sandwiches, but I'm not getting a lot of gravy in my normal rotation. But gravy is awesome. I don't know about, I want to read this more. I don't want to slander him, but he says that he's actually brought some just for myself on the down low at times when the host has rebuffed my offer. I don't know, sir, whether you can smuggle gravy into someone else's Thanksgiving dinner. I think you have to, as we
Why
said.
Why not? You just put it in your purse by your chair.
I don't think you should smuggle condiments of any kind into somebody's. This is the meal that you're getting. You have to live in the world as it is, not as you wish it would be. And elections have consequences. And if you have elected to attend Thanksgiving at somebody's house, I think you have to eat the fare that they put out and not surreptitiously. I mean, I'm assuming this is a male Chris. He doesn't have a purse to put it in. Is it a pocket full of gravy? Now, I carry a bag of meat without reservation. Gravy's a lot harder to sneak into things. Much harder to sneak into things. I don't know. I think you can bring it, but you got to declare it. I think if you really need it, but you got to declare it, and then that's going to be a problem.
You have to declare it. Yeah.
I think it's going to be a problem if you say, I offered to. I think when you've offered to bring gravy to somebody's house and they say no, I think you've done all that you can do. I think you've done all that you can do. I don't want to get you in trouble, Mr. Chiodo, but I think you've done all that you can do. But I agree with you on everything else.
Cranberry is my gravy.
Are you a ribbed can of cranberry, or do you make your own artisanal cranberry relish?
I'm definitely a make your own, and I'm making a relish this year.
I think it's
but
nice to
also
have
make
both.
your own sauce.
Oh, like a sauce. So you're going cranberry two ways.
Two ways.
Well, I am at the tender ministrations of my sister-in-law and mother-in-law to be for all of those things Thanksgiving. I'm providing hors d'oeuvres, and we're having a turkey bowl kind of little football game in the morning, and I'm providing food for that. But I'm not part of the story in the kitchen, and that's great because they're really good cooks, and I'm very happy for it. I don't know whether there will be a can of cranberry of the jellied cranberry, the ocean spray jellied cranberry, but I do like cranberry relish. I don't know about the sauce. How thin is your sauce?
Not thin. Well, I don't make it. My sister's gonna make it, but I'm trying the relish for the first time this year.
Oh, I like a chunky relish. I
Yeah.
think that's really good with a little orange zest in it.
Looked
It's
awesome.
excellent. But what am I in it all for? I'm
So
in it
I
all for
don't
the
need
stuffing.
the gravy. Oh yeah, I agree. The stuffing is important.
The dressing or stuffing, whatever you call it, based on where you're from in America, is where it's at. Oh, I neglected this year in my note to publish. Every year I publish in my politics note my stuffing recipe. And I care about it deeply because it's supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be, I think the thing about Thanksgiving that's really important for the food, we live in a society that wants everything to be flavor blasted and extreme and whatever else. Thanksgiving is the meal where we say, no, the most potent thing is going to be some onion, maybe, right? It's going to be
Cranberry is
bland.
flavor blasted.
It's flavor blasted, but it's tart and it's a little, do you put pickles on the table?
Refreshing. No.
Oh, I love a relish tray. Oh, Lord, I love a relish tray. Some sweet gherkins, some olives, you know it. But those are things that cut into the fatty. The cranberry is good because it's cutting through the unctuous fattiness of the gravy and the mashed potatoes and everything else. But it's not spicy. And I like the fact that Thanksgiving is, I think, homey. And the food, I like the food to be homey.
Speaking of which, the Times has a piece how lasagna became an how Thanksgiving lasagna became an American staple. And I thought this was weird when I saw it. And then I started reading the piece and I was like, this looks really good. Maybe I should try that.
Are you familiar with this?
I'm not.
I
Were
was
you?
I was unfamiliar. Maybe I knew something about this, but that Italian American families had made lasagna part of their Thanksgiving tradition, much like a lot of places, including a lot in the South. You'll see ham, a Virginia kind of ham, served at Thanksgiving, and ham is popular. It's fine, but again, we're here for the turkey. Thanksgiving lasagna, and what's interesting that the New York Times finds is that other subsequent immigrant cultures have adopted the lasagna of the Italian American community instead of the turkey. And
Yeah, so there's like an Asian one in here and a sag paneer lasagna, and they all look really good.
I love lasagna. When I was a child, lasagna was my favorite, always requested for my birthday. I loved Garfield. I was in. I think lasagna is delicious.
I'm just gonna tell you though, I'm looking at this Asian one, nam prik ong lasagna. I'm gonna tell you I will not be making this based on the number of ingredients required. And it's like half specialty ingredients. Okay, so that one's out. That one's out. Let's check this sog paneer one. Yeah, it looks like a lot of ingredients.
Lasagna is very time consuming to make well. Even the simplest lasagna is a many, many step process.
But I'm sure these are so good because it looks highly specialized.
Every summer, the boys and I try to celebrate what we call the Feast of Santo Garfeldo. And we make, apropos of nothing, in the summertime, usually in the middle of July, a lasagna feast for everyone on vacation. And so I guess that there's no more rhyme nor reason to that than there is serving it at Thanksgiving. So do your own thing. That I'm for doing your own thing.
Okay, Chris, it's time for our obsessions. This feels wrong coming after talking about Thanksgiving and lasagna, but mine is downstream of a story we have been following at the Free Beacon, which is the Kamala Harris campaign's payments to the Al Sharpton's National Action Network. And a few days after these payments were made, Sharpton conducted a friendly interview with Harris on MSNBC. So she basically paid for her friends to interview her. She also paid Oprah's production company and call her daddy. So the Sharpton thing was done. Now, when Sharpton did the interview on MSNBC, he did not disclose that his organization had, in days prior, just received $500,000 from the Harris campaign. And now an MSNBC spokesman told the Free Beacon that Sharpton also did not disclose this to his bosses at the NBC News network. They say they were unaware that this had happened. But what they won't say, which is interesting, amusing, telling, is whether Sharpton's acceptance of such a payment and his lack of disclosure of the payments when doing the interview violated any policy, any NBC News policy, or whether they will take any action as a result of this behavior. And what makes it interesting is that, 10, 15 years ago, when Phil Griffin was president of MSNBC, he suspended Joe Scarborough for a couple days because Scarborough had made and not disclosed a handful of small donations to some Republican politicians, including Matt Gaetz. And he did the same for Keith Olbermann, who had made some donations to a couple of Democratic politicians. And they stated at the time that NBC News has a policy that hosts may not contribute to or participate in political campaigns without the express approval of NBC News. And so that was different in that it was their hosts contributing to political campaigns rather than receiving money from. But arguably, the latter is worse.
Yeah.
And so furthermore, the spokesman would not say whether the policy has changed.
Oh, geez.
So they just want you to know they didn't know about it, but they can't say whether there's been any policy change, whether the policy still exists. It just seems like Sharpton, and what the subtext here is that they've got a compromised relationship with Al Sharpton. They fear reprisal from him for making any kind of move against him. I mean, that's what this is my opinion now, but that seems pretty clear.
Yeah, that they can't afford the blowback from Al Sharpton, and who is a credible threat to produce boycotts and do all that stuff.
Exactly.
That's gross.
So it's turned into quite an interesting story.
Gross, I say. Not thankful for that.
Chris, over to you. What is your obsession?
I don't like a hot take, obviously. I don't care for hot take-itude. And I also don't care for the stories that are actually, and the Wall Street Journal has a real doozy of those. Headline, a trollish headline for America's best newspaper. The Case for Being Ungrateful by Elizabeth Berenstein. Come on. I love
her. She's their relationship columnist.
Well, this is just the worst kind of thing. And for the Journal to publish this on Thanksgiving week, and Kim Murray sat down in her office one recent morning, opened a notebook, and wrote a heading at the top of the page, things I'm ungrateful for. On her list, car repairs, technical issues with her website, weight gain, a friend who let her down. It helps to acknowledge the things that are wrong, says the 54-year-old business owner from Howell, Michigan. Murray was pushing back against gratitude, or at least the dark side of it. Forcing ourselves to be grateful when we don't really feel it can be harmful to our mental well-being and our relationships, psychologists say. This dark gratitude can prevent us from acknowledging and addressing the problems in our life, and it will only make us feel worse in the long run. Come on. Do you really think that human beings, by and large, have trouble feeling ungrateful? Do we think that there is a crisis?
It's one of my best qualities, or one of my strongest qualities, is talking about things for which I'm ungrateful.
Human beings
Comes so
are
easy to me, Chris. I'm so good at it.
the human tendency to complain, to be selfish, to be self-centered, to idolize their own concerns and discount those things that other people do and experience is hardwired into our brains. We are made this way. The whole point of philosophy and the great religions is what? Teach us to be grateful. Teach us humility so that we can be grateful. If I am not humble, I cannot be grateful. And if I am not grateful, I cannot be happy. I cannot be happy unless I am grateful. I have an extraordinary life. I have an extraordinary life, not just by the standards of my own life, not just by the standards of the people living in America today, but by all of human history. I lead an extraordinarily blessed life. How much complaining do I do? Oh, I complain. How do the vicissitudes of ordinary life rankle me? Traffic and airport delays and people who let you down and things that don't go the way that you want. Of course, I dwell on those things. And then what do? I pray. I have to pray and meditate and consciously work to focus on, I have healthy children. I have the love of an amazing woman. I have a great job. I have good friends. I have all of these blessings. And if I don't remind myself constantly to do that, then I will be a monster and I will lack humility. I will lack gratitude, and I will not find joy and happiness. I was deeply offended by this piece that just, I mean, obviously telling people to be grateful for bad things is, I'm sure there could be pitfalls, but even in suffering, there are good things, right? Even in suffering, there are good things, and finding the good things in the hardships of this transitory life is the idea. And this got right up my nose.
Well, I was grateful for this piece of reader mail that exposed me to a new kind of barbecue sauce.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Thank you, Andy in Greenwich, Connecticut, who wrote, "For many years, I have regularly traveled to Kansas City. I used to always buy jars of Gates and or Arthur Bryant sauce." I'm not familiar with either of those.
Yes, Gates is the one I was trying to think of.
Okay.
Last week, Gates is spicy. It's excellent. I love it.
So he says, "I used to always buy jars of Gates and or Arthur Bryant sauce at the airport and bring it home. After a few years, I learned that Gates would ship cases of sauce, so I ordered their sauce by the case. I now use Whole Foods 365 Kansas City style sauce. It's a
Really?
great version of the Gates sauce. Yes, we have to try this."
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
This is a subject to which I've devoted a lot of energy over the years, and I loved hearing that because great. I will be trying all of those.
You know, we're going to have to eventually do, to celebrate the McRib. First, we have to, will it happen this weekend for me? It's possible that I'll be celebrating the McRib this weekend, but certainly we need a barbecue special because you are an unlikely barbecue enthusiast, but a real one.
I do. I should actually smoke some ribs and bring them in.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'll throw down on that.
Okay.
I'll do it too. We'll see if we can get Colin and Nate.
Oh my gosh, we should do a contest.
I am here for ribs.
We should do a contest.
I'm here for, I like brisket. Okay. When it's good, it's really good. I like pulled pork. Okay. But let's be real. ribs, that's where it's at.
Yes, I totally agree.
Delicious.
All right, Chris, that brings us to our favorite items of the week, where I am forced to say something nice. So that's a good section for this week. You go first.
Did you read this amazing piece?
I did.
Wow. I mean, wow. This is Anna Coday writing for the New York Times. Headline, A Real Estate Queen and the Secret She Couldn't Keep Hidden. Alice Mason was New York City's broker to the elite and a master at the art of hosting. One fete would alter her legacy and strain her relationship with her daughter. I don't think that I can talk about this without spoiling the pleasure of reading it, because it is so beautifully, expertly crafted. And here's the best thing about it. There's amazing social commentary in this piece, but never heavy-handed. Never does Ms. Coday stop and say, now here's what you should think. Here's what you should think about this amazing story. She just tells it. And the close, the ending of it is she takes you to a place where you say, okay, I think I see what's happening here. Then delivers that, builds you in the narrative arc of this piece, builds you up to, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I see it. And then the ending is just, it's not a surprise ending so much as it is poignant and powerful and really good. This is one of the best things that I have read this year, no question.
It's really, really good.
Really good.
Okay. My favorite item was a New York Times piece about the 17-year-old who just passed the California bar exam. She became the youngest person ever. And the previous record holder is her brother, Peter.
Brutal sibling rivalry.
3 months,
Brutal.
3 months older than she was when she passed it. It's so great. And the piece says, Sophia Park, 17, and her family huddled around her laptop one evening this month as she entered details onto the State Bar of California's website and clicked Check Pass List. She passed the July 2024 General Bar Exam, a requirement to be licensed as a practicing lawyer in the Golden State. Her family hugged and clapped her family clapped and hugged her. In the piece notes that the California bar is among the most difficult licensing requirements exams in the country. Just under 54% of the people who took it this year passed.
Amazing.
And she did it while she was taking advanced courses from home that allowed her to graduate from high school, college, and law school in 4 years.
I mean, you're a slacker. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
You're a
so
slacker.
After she turns 18 in March, Sophia will join her brother Peter at the Tulare County District Attorney's Office in Tulare County, California, as a prosecutor. She's been working there as a law clerk since January 2024, writing motions, sending discovery or case material to defense attorneys, and conducting preliminary trials. Oh my gosh.
What a great American story. What a great American story. Orange County, California, and it's super achieving young people. Good on you.
It's amazing.
So good.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. And I am thankful for you and your friendship.
Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you on the flip side.
Heck yeah.
So for now, that's all the time we have for the news about the news. If you have a story you want us to talk about or a barbecue sauce recommendation, email us at wretches@nebulouspodcasts.com and sign up for our newsletter at nebulouspodcasts.com. This has been Ink-Stained Wretches from Nebulous Media, produced by Colin Chicola. Find us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Wretches.